There's never been a better time to have SiriusXM. With even more exclusive content, with over 150 channels in your vehicle, including the widest, deepest variety of music, ad-free. Root for your team. Get news. Listen to whatever makes you laugh. And hear all about your favorite stars. Your Platinum Plan offer includes more than ever before to enjoy online, on your phone, or at home. Create your own ad-free personalized stations powered by Pandora. Hear ad-free extra channels filled with music and enjoy a favorite shows with SiriusXM Video. Thousands of hours of shows and performances on demand. What you love is on now.
Tonight, we've invited 5 of the most prominent brands in audiophile grade gear to educate us on the latest offerings in the segment. From high-end amplification to refined drivers, precision DSP, and beyond, these are the brands that elevate the in-car aural experience to an esoteric level. CMA Live, presented by SiriusXM, the Audiophiles, Part 1, starts now. Good evening. Thanks for tuning in to another CMA Live presented by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and as per usual, we have gathered some of the top brands within a segment. Of course, on the menu tonight is Audiophile. What does that mean? Well, you know what that means. It means high-end gear. We'll be covering all different kinds of categories. Some make amplifiers, some make DSP, some make speakers. We've got a great selection for you guys tonight. So lock in and well, pay attention, because this is what's going on in the world of the audiophile segment. Starting with my very first guest of the evening, who represents, well, Audison, the brand, an Italian brand that's made a lot of noise over the years with many, many innovations. He is their international technical marketing manager, and of course, his name is Ken Ward.
Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Ken, I'm doing great, and we finally arrived. This is the part of my season which I look forward to the most, because I love, like many who are tuning in, to geek out on some of this high-end stuff that we don't always get to talk a whole lot about. You know, a lot of the times we kind of skip over features and don't really get into the details. Well, I'm hoping tonight, starting with you, we're going to get a little bit more nerdy than that and kind of dive in a little bit. So hopefully we can do that again. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We can't, first of all, we can't do an audiophile episode without talking about Audison. That's first and foremost. So on that note, let's start from the very top. The pinnacle of the offering within the catalog of Audison is a series called Thesis. Can you tell us all about the Thesis line?
So Thesis really stems from Audison's origins as an amplifier manufacturer. And one of our company founders, Mr. Vagnoni, who passed away last year, he was the father of Audison in our company. And we've had several amplifiers over the years, historically, that have been up on a pedestal for their audio performance. And the Thesis project really came from that. And the amplification and the speakers, audiophiles, the word audiophile can mean a lot of different things. But when you're talking about product, what it really means is the equation of cost versus benefit has shifted, where someone's willing to spend more than average to get better than average performance. And so as a former product manager myself, I know that you're always making decisions as a product manager of what do we get for this expense, and what do we get for this time, and what do we get for this tooling. And when you get into something like Thesis, those questions really become secondary.
First of all, it's a gorgeous product line. If everybody's never heard of Thesis, I do implore you to kind of Google it, take a look at it. It is a very unique looking amplifier series, and as Ken mentioned, also speakers. So let's start with the amplifiers. What are some of the I'm trying to use the term, the not so logical features that the Thesis amplifiers have that really make them some of the highest grade units of amplification out there?
Well, my favorite one to talk about is the HV Venti. It's the flagship. Internally, it's called the amplifier. There's only a couple of people that assemble these. They're completely handmade. Now, to give you an idea of the extremes that we went to when this amplifier was designed, most electronics have operational amps. They're silicon packages with a collection of transistors that basically allow us to insert gain stages into different parts of, whether it's a head unit or a DSP or an amplifier. Op amps are a common part of every amplifier that I've ever seen, except HV Venti, because they decided to implement what an op amp does in a completely discrete manner. So it is individual resistors and transistors. There's actual gain stages like there were in the very old days that all of the individual parts, we can control where they're placed, what their tolerances are. And that's because the one thing that op amps add is just a little bit of noise floor. And so they were eliminated. The output section is essentially a type of transistor called a IGBT, bipolar transistor, but it is also a collection of external transistors instead of a package. I remember when amplifiers were 100% discrete, and then more and more surface mount started to appear, and packages, silicon chips started to appear. And this is a throwback to the days when everything was discrete. In an amplifier, it's good practice when you design your circuit board to keep your low current traces away from your high current traces, so that the low current traces don't pick up noise from the high current traces on the board. We have separate boards for low and high current. Okay, that's not unheard of, but we also went to the trouble to make sure that our low current traces, our high current traces for two different channels, when they go past each other, they're not going the same direction. They're actually, the current is traveling in opposite directions, which took a lot of work to design that board, but it keeps the noise floor incredibly, incredibly low. The power supply is a multi-stage power supply, even though it's a stereo amplifier. And of course, it's completely regulated, where the input voltage, variations in the input voltage do not cause variations in the output amplifier power. So because you turn on your headlights or you pull out to pass somebody, our amplifier doesn't change what it sounds like. If you're not going to use the crossovers, and at the time that HV Venti was designed, having amplifier crossovers was, a lot of how processing got done. But if you're not going to use them, the board actually unplugs and a bypass goes into the socket, so that none of that circuitry is in the audio path.
The signal actually goes into the part that you wouldn't be using anyways.
Now, when we go from HV Venti to the Thesis family, and when I say Thesis family, there's a mono amp, that's AB. There's a 4-channel and there's a 2-channel amp. And in that family, that was the first family that had a digital bus in the Audison brand, where you can actually connect multiple amplifiers together. And in the old days, before we had DSPs, tuning a system was really adjusting the levels and the crossovers on your various amplifiers. And that could get very difficult depending on your installation. So in the document that explains how to set up a Thesis system, there's a beautiful screenshot of the app that gives you all the protection states, all of the temperature states, all of the crossover states, all of the input gain states, all adjustable on one app. And this is not new. This is an app that we've had for quite a while. This sort of capability is finally being overtaken by DSP. But this is a groundbreaking thing that is very huge. Most folks have never seen anything like it.
Fair enough. We can dig deeper into the amps, but when you're talking about Thesis, you mentioned before, there's also a beautiful set of speakers that bear that name as well. Can you talk about a little bit, or the features that make the Thesis speakers just a unique offering from Audison?
Well, the first thing that's obvious, and it doesn't influence the sound directly, but our company really believes that the industrial design of a product is the quickest way to let people know how that product's going to perform. And it doesn't matter what language you speak. If it's a beautiful and you see it and you see it's beautiful, you understand where the creator's mind was. And these speakers are gorgeous speakers. Now, we have a 6.5, and we have a 3, and we are a 70 millimeter, and then we have basically an 1.5-inch tweeter. And the idea here is that if you have, in a lot of cars, especially exotic cars, you don't have a design that lends itself to a 3-way set. You're going to go with a 6.5 and a tweeter. And our tweeter has such a low mechanical resonant frequency, it can play so low that it's like a little mid-range, but it still goes. It plays to 30K. I don't think it's within 3 dB. I think at 3 dB you're like 26K or something like that. So we've got an incredible top end for a large tweeter, and we also have the great low end you would expect from a large tweeter. The mid range and the mid woofer both have Faraday shorting rings in them to manage the inductance, so that they manage the high frequency distortion that can easily occur with a dynamic loudspeaker. And we don't have one in the Thesis tweeter, because it turns out that the way we managed that with the Thesis tweeter was just to put a really, really powerful magnet in there that was really tall. It's 60 millimeters across, and it's almost a 1/4 inch thick of neodymium.
Right.
So it's a very, very powerful tweeter. I've had the opportunity to tune some cars that had these speakers in them, and one of the marketing message is really, really on point. They don't compress the sound. They don't strain when things get loud. And I played some songs that I really expected to hear that point where, the speaker's just working a little bit too hard. And fortunately, I was in a situation with a great installation. I didn't hear the installation. I didn't hear the speaker strain. Like Flamin' the BBs is a track I used to use to sell CD players when they came out. And I was recently reminded by an industry professional, hey, remember this track? Oh yeah, I should start using that again. And gosh, it's a great way to hear speakers and their behavior when things get serious.
Very good, very good. I can't ask for a better description of what to expect from the sound than that. Now, rounding out the high-end offering at the upper scale of the catalog from Audison, we can't not talk about DSP. And you mentioned a little bit. DSP is obviously, everybody on this panel knows about DSP. We've spoken to this at length. But Virtuoso has a place at the high-end spectrum of the Audison offering, doesn't it?
It does, and we built a number of DSP processors before we got to the full name is Bit1 HD Virtuoso. And before we got to Virtuoso, the original Bit1 HD, the same circuit design is what we used in the Virtuoso, but we upgraded every analog part we could get our hands on. The electrolytic capacitors, the polyester capacitors, the op amps that we use in the DSP are from Cirrus Logic. They're a very high audio grade. The DACs are very high audio grade. And then the DSP chip itself is an Analog Devices Shark that is literally a studio grade processor that's used in some professional applications. The reason that we did that is that a dream of the R&D department, which we were able to realize early last year, was instead of using the standard DSP calculations, which are called IIR, which every DSP that uses, we wanted to add in the ability to use FIR filters that give us the ability to directly manipulate the phase. And so when the Virtuoso is used in conjunction with our tuning tool, we can actually perform a room correction amplitude and phase algorithm, which is similar to what you see in a lot of high-end home theater processors, which are intended to correct for the room. And that's what we can do with Virtuoso. We do have direct phase manipulation as well with all-pass phase inverting filters, both on the input and the output stage. But the Virtuoso has many, many things that have advanced our state, our art for DSP. We've just introduced a few of those things, into the AF Forza. But whenever I explain that they exist, like the global EQ or the input EQ or some of these things, I explain that this is really that racing improves the breed saying. This is really the thesis level product trickling down to everyday gear.
Very much so. I kind of saved a fun question for the end. We're talking about thesis. Now we're just mentioned about the Bit One Virtuoso system. Now I'm going to ask you, Ken Ward, describe to us the ultimate system design using Audison components for your personal car, and what would that be and why?
Gosh, I'd have to go get one of those Sprinter vans like that.
Okay, that's cheating.
So we have a collection of thesis amplifiers that I really love, and they're large. So obviously your question, we would be taking amplifier size out of the picture. But an active three-way thesis front stage with a couple of the 4-channel amps all connected together where the power supplies are synchronized and we don't have any possibility of heterodyning noise between them. That's really a great sound system. Now, I have to say that the thesis speakers, I've heard them even on lesser electronics and they still shine. It's not a situation where you have to lift all the boats equally. But I really love those thesis speakers.
Fair enough. So three-way definitely the way to go in your mind, for sure. Okay.
Well, if I get to take the car.
That's right. If you want more information on all thesis products, Virtuoso, and everything that Ken has been talking about tonight, let's bring up the website. It's audison.eu. It's a global website. Tons of product on there. All the product lines obviously are available to browse. And if you happen to be a dealer who is in Canada this evening tuning in, well, their Canadian distributor, Automobility, automob.ca. Now, Ken, you and I, we're touching base together, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper and geek out a little bit harder than what we did tonight. So make sure you guys tune in for that one when we do Audison during our audiophile session. So thank you so much for coming in, Ken. All right, let's keep the good times rolling. We got an all-star cast this evening, from one big brand to the next big brand, one big trainer to the next big trainer. This is a big brand and a lot of people's favorites, that's for sure. We're talking about Focal. If we're going to be talking about Focal, we're going to reach out to our good friend and product trainer at Orca, Mr. Nick Wingate, standing by.
Good evening, sir.
Love the t-shirt, by the way, buddy.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Perfect t-shirt. Let's dive into it. Focal is such a loved brand. It's got a brand with such heritage. Let's start by understanding what makes Focal one of the foremost loudspeaker manufacturers on the planet.
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to look at the design philosophy of the company and where it started with Mr. Jacques Moel back in the late 1970s. Jacques was a consummate professional and built everything to a certain standard, and that standard was perfect. His dad was a metallurgist and built things to an exacting standard, and he taught him that everything you do has to be built to this exacting standard. So when it was applied to building transducers to reproduce music, that same philosophy came shining through. And when you tie in his love of music and his philosophy of building something to such a complete, amazing standard that is getting as close to the reproduction of live music, that kind of set him apart from everybody else, because Jacques didn't care what it cost. We were going to build, he's going to build the absolute best there was. And that philosophy is still there today. That was over 40 years ago, Ben. And if you take a look at how the company's grown, I mean, back then it was a very small company. It was Jacques and Kim Bellis, my boss and my friend, and a few other people working in his garage. And here you are today. You're looking at a company that builds what is called the best in home audio, the best in car audio, the best in pro audio, the best in headphones, and the best in walls, speaker systems. That's a hell of a statement when you can say the best, the best, the best, the best. And, that's just not my opinion. When you're talking about, you look at the folks at Stereophile magazine and the absolute center of the perfect vision, every year they come out with the top brand, whatever it is, amps, speakers, home line, whatever. You will see multiple versions of Focal, be it the headphones, be it the Pro Audio, be it the home audio. And the reason for it is because of the standard of excellence that the company has, and the philosophy of that it truly is about the music, and that's what they work on every single solitary day, is to build something at such an exacting level that it's as close as they can build it to where it sounds like live music.
The following that Focal has is certainly something that is not to be argued. It is a very popular brand amongst all our specialty dealers. We see it come up a lot, in a lot of the builds. And, I'll be honest, I'm going to be the first to admit, I was surprised when I flipped back through last year and the year before, how many feature builds had Utopia M's in them. Like, these are not inexpensive speakers, right? Like, we're talking top of the range. So I guess my question is a great segue here. What, in your opinion, Nick, makes the legendary Utopia M range of drivers truly audiophile grade?
Well, again, I listen to Ken's his definition of audiophile, and I completely agree. There's another part of this, though, because most audiophiles, like myself, what we're looking for when we're sitting down and we're listening to music is, I'm looking for something that's going to take me to the concert. That it's literally, I'm going to transcend where I am, and I'm going to be taken to where that is. It's called a reproduction of live. Utopia M does that better than any car audio speaker in the world today, and I will stake my reputation on it. I have listened to numerous different systems, great speakers, great systems built by a lot of different people and a lot of different manufacturers. And there's a lot of great things to be said about them. Because let's face it, there's really and truly, there's a lot of great product out there, Ben. But when you have professional engineers, professional sound engineers, professional musicians that will tell you when they hear Utopia M tuned correctly in a car, they will tell you it's the closest thing to live they've ever heard in their life. And it's because of the amount of R&D, the amount of, and just to be honest, when you're talking about R&D, it takes a hell of a lot of money to do it. And it takes a heck of an engineering team. Focal has all three at its beck and call. The engineers over there that have PhD at the end of their name is pretty daggum impressive. And the brain power is very, very impressive. It's amazing. And when you apply all of what they've learned over the last 40 years in the reproduction of music, and they're given a blank check, literally saying, build the absolute best that you can possibly build in a speaker for an automobile. That's a daunting task. But 2.5 years later and $2.5 million later, here comes this amazing product. And it's because of their undying passion for the music. Yeah, and it's amazing because you can walk around that facility and you can see what's going on, and everybody there is either got these amazing headphones on, or there's a 2-channel system playing. And I'm not talking something from Walmart. I'm talking there may be $100,000 sitting out there playing.
Yeah.
It's amazing,
Nick, honestly, I have no expectation of you going deep into it, because we know there's so many layers of technology built into Focal speakers, and that's why everybody listening right now needs to tune into the show. We're doing the complete Focal show, where Nick is going to go through all the technology, the cone materials, and all that great stuff. We don't have the time tonight, but I mean, we're just skipping through, key points here. And, Utopia M sets a standard as the pinnacle offering from Focal. But then you look down the line, right? You got K-Power, then you got Flax. And these two series are extremely popular as well. What do you think makes these two so popular and favorites amongst these high-end builders?
Well, K2 Power is a niche product, and it is. There's a reason the word power is in the title of the line itself, because it is a very dynamic, very powerful sounding speaker system. And when you have a client that listens to EDM, or they listen to rap, and they listen to hip hop, or they listen to speed metal, or they listen to Rammstein or somebody like that. These speakers were created just for that type of listener. And this, when I do my sales trainings, I always tell them, look, K2 Power is a niche product. And everybody kind of looks at me. I'm like, no, trust me. Will it play classical music? Absolutely. Will it play rock and roll? Absolutely. But does it do something better? Yes. And when you take a look at, the vast majority of what's being sold in the world today, as far as pop music is concerned, it's rap and hip hop and techno, and of course
K-pop,
metal.
Nick, come on, K-pop. There's K-pop in there. Yes, you have to put it in there.
Don't make me laugh, dude.
I'm sorry. All right. So K-pop, yeah, sorry, back to your thing.
It does it so well. And I think that's one of the reasons why we sell so much of it. And it's been a standard, Ben, since 1984. And it's just been refined since then to the point where it is right now. And,
how does that contrast to flax, though? How does that contrast to flax as far as tonality?
Now, flax is built exactly the same way. It is a sandwich cone, just like the Utopia cones are in K2 Power. They're all, 2 and 3 layers brought together. But flax has a different sonic signature. Flax is a little warmer. It's a little more neutral. And I know, and I'm going to catch hell from Andy. Warmer and neutral, no such thing. But that's the way I describe it to people. It's almost sounds like you're listening. It sounds like you're listening to tubes, buddy. That's what it reminds me of. When you, and I don't care what music you play, it does it extremely well. It can play classical all the way to, album-oriented rock from the 70s. And it's a marvelous sounding system, and it's clean, it's natural sounding, it's very easy to listen to, it's non-fatiguing. And when you look at the price point, which we all have to do, it's really, really hard to know that there might be something better, but do you want to step up to K2 Power? Do you want to go to Utopia? And a lot of times that's a big step. But when you listen to what flax is, you listen what it gives you, you listen to the emotional response it can bring out of you, which it can do. I have literally, I'm going to tell you the story. I demonstrated a very old Elvis tune to a lady in her 70s who saw Elvis live, and she cried. And do you think she bought the speakers?
When the emotion's involved, who cares about the price?
She didn't care.
It doesn't matter.
It brought that kind of emotional response. And that's what flax does. And it does it extremely well.
Okay. So I'm going to challenge you now, Nick. I'm going to challenge you. You've set such a bar with flax. And honestly, a lot of people will say the same. I agree. I've heard it. But now you've come along with this brand new cone material that if those of you have been following the home side of things, it's been out for a minute. But now they've managed to engineer for car. It's hot new. It's slate fiber. And what I'm hearing is that gap. Like, what is slate fiber? Remind me, what is slate fiber replacing again?
It's replacing. Well, it's eventually. We have been told it's eventually going to replace a material called polyglass.
Okay, so let's call it polyglass.
Okay.
So should slate fiber be replacing polyglass, it would be one step down, right? From under.
Yes,
flax,
it would
correct?
be. It would be.
So this is the challenge. I've heard that slate fiber has narrowed the gap. The gap that existed between polyglass and flax has now diminished. I want your comment on this.
It's very true. It is amazing in what it can reproduce at the price point this is being brought in at. And the best way that I can describe this to your viewers as to how absolutely amazing the product sounds at the price points it's at, because you're right, it's right below flax. It's about $100 a pair cheaper, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less in Canada. We debuted the product last March in Phoenix at the Master Tech show. And we had a demo, we had a car outside, and it had separates in the front, and it had coaxials in the rear, and there was a sub in it. And yes, there was a DSP, and yes, we tuned the car, and we had people going in and out of that car all day long. And I can tell you unequivocally that I had dealers that have been with us for 15, 20 years come to the booth, find me, and say, Nick, why do we need another $2,000 set of speakers? And I'm going, what are you talking about? Well, we were listening to the Chevy outside that's got slate fiber in it. Yeah, man, we don't need another $2,000 set of speakers, dude. They're going to retail for $450. What? Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me.
Exactly.
That's
exactly my point.
That's what they've done. I mean, it's everything they've learned. And here comes this product. And yeah, you're right. It was originally designed for the home line, for the chorus speakers that are just absolutely amazing. But those of us around the world who distribute Focal Car Audio, we're like, excuse us, can we have some, please? And they finally listened. So yeah, it's amazing product.
Tune into the show, guys. Check our schedule. We're gonna go dive and you're gonna find out why slate fiber is exactly doing what Nick is describing. All right, here's the fun part. Describe to us. I mean, you've built a system or two in your day. You've competed, but if you were starting blank, knowing what you know now that's available,
okay,
what would your personal build look like?
Oh, that's easy. 3-way up front, TBM tweeter, 3 WM mid-range, 2 8 WMs in each door. I would have probably 6 WM TBM rear doors because we're going to build my truck, and probably 3 Utopia 10 WM subs. And
3, okay.
Yeah, and of course it'd all be Moscone 430 front, left, right,
double 430,
430, 110 Pro 110 on each mid bass driver, 1 Pro 10 on each sub in the back, and another 430 for the rear drivers, and an H12 aerospace, and another H12 aerospace.
So if I counted that right, that's 7 chassis plus 2 DSP boxes.
Yeah, so Chris Pate would have to, and then so that tells me that Chris has to cut the back of the bed out, and then we're going to have to do a blow through. And yeah, oh God, Ben, why did we do this?
Because this is what we do. This is what we do. Nick, listen, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to doing our show together where we dive deep into Focal. And thank you so much for coming in today and sharing with us, a teaser on what that full show is going to be.
Ben, it's always a pleasure. Anytime, I'm always there, brother. You just let me know.
I appreciate that, sir. For more information on Focal products, make sure you check out the global website, focal-america.com. Everything Nick talked about will be on there in full detail. And if you happen to be in Canada, pay attention to this one. If you don't already know, trendsinc.com. That's right, Trends Electronics, new exclusive distributor for Focal Car Audio and more in Canada. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Nick.
Appreciate it.
So obviously everybody backstage knows everybody, and I think Nick here already referenced my next guest, and we're happy to have him, of course. He is the owner and president of AUDIOPHILE. Some great speakers, man. And you know what? I'm just going to bring him on. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. His name is Andy Waymeyer. Welcome to the studio, sir. How are you, Andy? Hi. So Ken had a shot.
Nick thinks I'm going to trash him because he used those words.
He's like, can I go before Andy? He said, can I go before Andy so that I can leave and then he can say whatever he wants about me? No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. Listen, AUDIOPHILE, exciting time for AUDIOPHILE. Last time you were on AUDIOPHILE, we're talking about your speakers, right? We went through the whole range and how it comes with great features and how it fits everywhere and all this great stuff. We're not talking about speakers today because we got something new to talk about, Andy. Why don't you tell us all about the newly introduced range of, yes, I'm going to say it, AudioPhile amplifiers?
Oh, you mean you're not going to ask me what an AUDIOPHILE is?
No.
Oh, come on, ask me that one first.
Okay, fine. I was trying to avoid Andy. Everybody else had a shot at it. Why don't you please tell us what you feel?
I don't know why you're not going to ask me this question. Okay.
But I did. I just did. What do you feel the term AUDIOPHILE refers to?
I don't even know. So I think Ken and Nick are both right. So AUDIOPHILE. So file, right? File. I mean, look up the suffix there, and you'll see that these are people who have a sort of an unnatural attraction to a particular thing, and we put file at the end of a word to indicate that they have a sort of an unnatural attraction to whatever goes before it. And audio happens to be in front of file, so that means people have an unnatural attraction to audio stuff. I'm an audiophile, I think. I mean, I love great music reproduced well. And there are lots of different ways to listen to music, right? One way is a concert. Nick and I both love concerts. I'll go see anything, just about. And we go to see a lot of concerts, but there are other ways to listen to music. I know people who literally hate concerts. They hate the way they sound, and you never get a bad concert in LA. They always sound great, because if you're a sound guy and you provide nasty sound, they don't invite you back. But there are a lot of people who don't like concerts. They don't like the way they sound, but they like to sit in their basement and listen to, $250,000 worth of 2-channel audio. This is a completely different experience, and it's also a file. I think when people think about audiophiles, that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, big basement system, 8-foot tall pair of speakers. I kind of have something like that in my living room. And then there are other people who will spend an entire weekend, from sundown on Friday to sun up on Monday in a club. This is also a high-end audio system, but a completely different presentation, right? So to me, all of those are audiophiles. They just happen to appreciate music in a different way. And there's a really good book called How Music Works, written by David Byrne, who was the one of the founders of the Talking Heads. And in that book, he talks about the different kinds of music, and that some music is written for different performance spaces and whatever. If you're an audiophile, I suggest reading that book. Anyway, so
I appreciate that one. That was a really good description. I appreciate that, Andy. Thank you.
So at AudioFrog, I spent 20 years at a really big audio company with an office and an engineering department full of people who use different words, right? So when I talk about great audio, I'm used to technical speak, right? So and I'm always ranting on Facebook about the use of some what I think are crazy words, because they're not the words I use, and they're not the words I have a habit of using. And if you read a lot of the audiophile press, I think that these words, transparency and musicality and all these things, these words have technical meanings, but they're often used as a way to dismiss the technical meanings of the words. And people who are not technical, and you don't have to be technical to be an audiophile, you just have to love music reproduced well, right? But people who are not technical, I think, sometimes feel like they're being talked down to when people use graphs and math and all kinds of stuff to describe all of the all of the stuff that goes into it. So when Nick is talking about PhDs designing speakers, and I used to work with a bunch of PhDs that design speakers and amps and DSPs and all kinds of other stuff, and car audio systems for BMW and Mercedes and whatever else, these people don't use those words, because these people use math. And math is how all that kind of stuff gets designed. But those words are how people describe their experience in listening to them. But they're not technical, right? You don't design a speaker to have great musicality. You design a speaker to have flat frequency response and low distortion, right? And sometimes it's hard for one party who's speaking that language to speak to the other party who's speaking the language of musicality and transparency and all that kind of stuff. So at AudioFrog, I have a 30-year habit of thinking about audio products in terms of performance and implementation, which is really important in aftermarket cardio, because somebody's got to install this stuff, right? You buy a pair of speakers to go in your car. You don't buy a pair of boxes with a passive crossover already in there, and right. The enclosures are done and whatever else. So we need people. We need people to implement these systems. We have to turn techs into systems engineers, because that's what's required in order to get great sound. In order to get great sound in your car. So as an audiophile brand, one of my jobs is to provide great products that perform really well and perform well past the point of diminishing returns. But I also kind of feel like we have an obligation, simply because of the history of where most of us at AudioFrog have been, to also provide some useful, helpful, straightforward instruction about how to make these things perform and how to make these things perform their best. I'll tell you a really brief story, then I'll start talking about it. So lots of people Facebook message me with all kinds of questions about their systems, and sometimes this happens at 11 p.m. on Saturday night, which okay, fine, right? So a guy messages me and wants to have this lengthy discussion about how his system doesn't sound as good as he thinks it ought to, and he thinks it's because the USB cable between his phone or his media player, I can't remember which, and his DAC is causing a bunch of jitter. And I have been over and over and over this system with this guy, and I have encouraged him to learn how to EQ his car. So 11 p.m. on a Saturday night, we're having an argue about jitter, and I'm like, dude, that's not the problem. Have you put the mic in the car? How much time have you spent, tuning this thing and getting to the target curve and making sure stuff is right and setting delays with your tape measure because that's how you do it, whatever else. And he'd always sort of sidestep those kinds of questions. And now we're arguing about jitter, and I'm just like at my wit's end. I'm trying to watch Peaky Blinders, which is exactly the right thing to be watching while I'm having this conversation. So a few weeks later, he sends me a message and he says, dude, my system has never sounded better. And I'm like, oh. So I don't ask him about the USB cable because, of course, I know that wasn't it. So what he did is he had somebody remote tune his car. And he bought a DSP that has some kind of a spatial thing in it. I can't remember which one it was or whatever else, but he had somebody remote tune his car. And apparently this DSP also includes an auto tune. So he had somebody remotely auto tune his car, right? So what is that auto tune? EQ. Right? So it turns out he did in fact replace his USB cable at the same time when he put in this new DSP and had somebody auto tune it. But guess what he thinks was the reason that his car sounds great? The USB cable.
The USB cable.
Right. So I think that sometimes this we get too lost in all of the minutia, and I'm sometimes accused of focusing too much on the 80% and leaving out the last 20% that apparently gets you the rest of the way there. And I just feel like sometimes we're so focused on the 20%, that we've forgotten the first 80%. And if you forget the first 80%, what do you have? 20%.
20%.
Right? So you don't get to 100% by focusing on the last 20%. You got to do the 80%. And there's so much work to do in the industry in getting people to 80% that I really feel like this is so our business model is make great stuff, teach people how to use it, and then they will on their own discover how great your stuff is. That's our MO.
Tell me now about how great these amplifiers are, because I think that was a great way to segue into what I know you're very proud of, because we did the show and there's a lot to it. We're not going to be able to warn the listeners now. We're not going into every single detail here in this interview. But I mean, there's a couple key features that Andy's really proud of, and I want to give Andy the opportunity to talk about them.
Okay, so this is an amp. This thing is really small. This is an amp. This is a Note 10. This is a Note 10. This is an amp. This amp this is a 600.1. This is a subwoofer amp. This is rated at 600 watts at 2 ohms, but it does about 750. You can go watch a 5-Star Car Audio where they put it on the dyno. So it's really small. This is like if you're a smoker, this is 3 packs of cigarettes next to each other. If you build houses, this is half a brick. This is the way I sort of describe this thing, because it's about half as thick as a brick, so about 1.25 inches thick, about the same size as a brick, and weighs about as much as a half a brick. So it's really so it's small. And so I have a prop here. Anybody recognize this? This is an old ADS PS5, right? For you old school dudes, this was a kind of a high-end 2-channel amplifier from a really high-end company in the late 80s, right? This thing is really old. But ADS has long been regarded as super high-end stuff. So this is about a 35-year-old amplifier. 35-year-old amplifier. I have to move back and forth so you can see them both. Right? 35 watts by 2. 35 watts by 2. 10 times the power. Right? Pretty cool. Now, if we open up this old ADS PS5, which is a great amp, this is what it looks like inside. This is 35 years ago. This is kind of an audiophile amp. This is Class AB. This is Class AB, and as Ken was mentioning, this is also mostly a discrete amp. This thing was really expensive. This is what the inside of our little amp looks like. So go on ampguts.com and look at all the pictures of board layouts and all of that kind of stuff. You probably won't find a lot of people explaining what the parts are, and I've joked about that in the past, but you won't see a board that looks like this on AmpGuts. And board layout like this, it takes a bunch of expertise. I didn't do this board layout because that's not what I do, but I have a bunch of friends who are a bunch of experts at doing all kinds of stuff, and one of them put this thing together for us. And in the world of miniaturized Class D amplifiers that make almost no distortion and almost no noise and pack a whole bunch of power into a little bitty package so that you can fit a whole bunch of them in somebody's car. There's really kind of nothing like it.
Let's get right to it. There's been a couple of people that have been very vocal about their experience with the amplifier, Andy. They've shared their feedback online. I want you to share with us some of the feedback that you might have received privately from dealers who've had the opportunity to play with and install this new amplifier.
Well, so most of the feedback, the call I get usually is they'll open the box and they pull the amp out and they call me and they go, "Oh my God, I had no idea it was this small." Which is pretty cool because cars don't have a lot of room. I was at a dealer in Chicago a couple of months ago and finally saw this thing on somebody's soundboard next to a bunch of other amplifiers, and I kind of freaked out because when I put the heatsink together, when I designed the heatsink, I was looking at the spreadsheets. It was in the middle of COVID, right? So I didn't have everybody's amp, sitting on the desk going, "Are we smaller than this one? Are we smaller than this one?" I was looking at spreadsheets. This one's 10 3/8, and this one's 11 7/16, and whatever. So sure enough, we're smaller, but I didn't realize how much smaller. These things are really powerful. These things, they play loud, and they're super clean. I took that 24-channel DSP amp that I made in the garage out of my Mercedes and put 6 of these things in there. It's much louder, noise floor much lower, and that's really what an amp is supposed to do. And all of the for me, where the rubber meets the road is the measurement. Right? If it doesn't make distortion, then you can make a measurement and you can verify that it doesn't make distortion, and you can verify that it doesn't make noise, and all of that stuff about silk capacitors and we use the highest end parts in the world and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. But what really matters is what you hear, and we can measure what we hear. We can measure what we hear. So that's really the thing.
Now, in our one-on-one session where we go deep into it, we're going to talk about key features, much geekier, actual mathematical engineering, physics stuff. I'm going to save that for the show, so make sure you guys tune in for that. I got Andy all to myself, and we really tear apart that amplifier. Now, I want to close with this because I am asking every guest this tonight. You kind of hinted at it by saying that you swapped out the amps, but if you were to build a system again from scratch now with the components that you have at your disposal, how would you set that up?
Well, I kind of sort of have that already. It's in a Mercedes, and some folks around have heard this thing, and it's pretty cool. But my Mercedes is over. I'm using it as a teaching tool in the building. We're going to start Audio Frog U up again pretty soon because it needs a transmission. And if I put a $6,000 transmission in it, it'll be worth $5,500 because nobody wants an old Mercedes. And my son Jacob has just come to work at the company, and he loves audio and he's learning about it. And he and I are building a system now, which is remarkably similar to the one in the Mercedes. So it's a little Volvo C30. I'm kind of a Volvo fan. I'm a big nerd. But it'll have a very similar system. 3 waves in the front doors, which will be a GB60, a 25, and a 10. In each of the front doors, there's a 40 and a 10 in the side panels near, by the back seat. And then in the back, there will probably be, we're not quite there yet, but probably a GB25 and a 10. In the back, a pair of GB10D4s, and then in the center of the dash, there's a GB60 and a GB10. And then there'll be 7 of these little amplifiers in there. So we'll have 2 A600s and 2 A600s and 5 A150 0.4s, a couple of DSPs. We don't make DSPs yet, and I have 1 of those upmixing beta boxes left. So this will be a full 7.1 with our upmixing software, and we're trying to get it done.
Did you say DSP yet, or was I just hearing things?
Yeah, but we don't have time to talk about that. You'll have to have.
Okay, fine. You're gonna let you get away with that for now.
Right. So this car, we will debut this car, if not earlier, at Master Tech Expo, and also probably at Knowledge Fest in Las Vegas, and it should be cool. Should be cool.
Looking forward to that.
There's some pictures of progress on Facebook, and we'll do a sort of a build log that's kind of unlike other build logs. I mean, I can fab, but fab is not my favorite thing to do. And it takes me a really long time. But so our build log will probably mostly be about making measurements and deciding where speakers are going to go and why they went there and all of that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So another teaching tool, but we'll look forward to seeing all you guys. And Jacob, my son, will be out in this car cruising around all over the place doing demos and product trainings and whatever else later in the year.
For more information on AudioFrog products, here's the website, audiofrog.com. If you happen to be in Canada, well, longtime distributor, Importel.com. Tune in to see the full breakout of the new AudioFrog amps on CMA Networks. Thank you, Andy. Take care. All right, let's hop right away into the next juggernaut of a brand. Man, I love it. High end after high end after high end. We're going to get into a big one, a German one, Brax. Yes, Brax. Distributed by MSC America. We have their president standing by to come into the studio, Mr. Larry Penn.
Greetings, Ben.
Larry.
How are you, man?
Thank you for your patience, sir. We are anxious to talk about every brand tonight, and Brax is certainly no exception to the rule. Oh, man, Brax, talk about uber high end. It means so much to me personally. As you know, I think I've shared this story. I remember the first time I seen an ad. It was a small little ad. I think it was in Car Audio magazine. Yeah. And it was for something that looked like a big battery. That I didn't know what I was looking at. and from there, I mean, the history, we've had a chance to connect with, Julian and everything. So I'm excited to talk about it tonight. I have no idea what we're talking about, but here's what I do know. It's not a new name. Let's establish that. It's been a while for a long time, especially in the audiophile side of things. Can you give us a little bit of a backstory to keep people up to date of, what Brax has become and where it's from?
Sure. Brax is the love of founder Heinz Fischer from Audiotech Fischer. As many of you know, Audiotech Fischer is founded as a family and continues on as a family 30 years later. Heinz and Gudrun Fischer are the founders of the company, and their son Julian is now the CEO of the company and is making all the daily decisions. And Heinz is kind of the main man behind the scenes, financially figuring things out. And also, I was just talking to him today. His new business card is going to say babysitter because he's taking care of Julian's newborn during the day while Julian's working. So Heinz got started in the biz, if we want to call it that, when he was 16 years old. He picked up his brother's guitar and immediately fell in love with music. And he played with a bunch of his buddies in a dance band when he was 16 years old, and they became very popular. And to this day, I just got the latest video with him and I think a few of those same guys from when he was 16 still playing in a band, and they're doing shows still in Germany. So it was pretty cool to see. So we're going to show that video sometime later in the future on CMA.
Nice.
So he went from that. He started building speaker systems for venues, whether it was sound reproduction or live reproduction venues, building the speaker cabinets and enclosures for that. And that's really where he got the bug for electronics. He continued on as an apprentice, as a radio and TV technician. That's what they used to call engineers back in the old days. And then carried on with that with his friend Thomas Fischer. They started a company called Fischer and Fischer, and they founded a company building enclosures out of slate rock, and sold a bunch of those throughout Europe and Asia. And Chris and I and Jason saw the actual slate rock enclosures while we were there. They had a pair of Brax components mounted in there, so it was really, really cool. So after that, he got the bug of wanting to make electronics his career and his business, and formed Audiotech Fischer, and that started with Brax. And Brax, the name, as a musician, as a music lover, came from a very popular album. It was actually, I think, their second album from Santana, called Abraxas, with the Black Magic Woman.
Yes.
So abbreviated, because Gudrun, we had a good laugh about this today. He wanted to call the company Abraxas, and Gudrun says, "Man, we're going to get the ass suit off of us if we go worldwide with this." So much to Heinz's chagrin, they narrowed the name down to Brax. And I think the product that you're talking about was back in 1990, 1991, where they founded the company. He was a home audio guy, and part of what he was always fanatical about was power supplies. And using 110 or 220 volts is a lot different than using 12 volts. And his friends were all building car audio systems. He goes, man, you guys got 12 volts, you got no current. This is a bad idea. So he came out with the first power stabilizer, and that was the Brax power stabilizer. And that's what launched the company. And within a year or two, he had 35 international distributors, and it was going like crazy. So he wanted to continue on with that, of building an amplifier. So in 1996, after 3 years of development, they released the X2000 amp. They invited 7 distributors to Germany in the same building that they're in today, although much smaller because they've expanded since. And they launched this X2000 to worldwide acclaim as, we feel, one of the first truly high-end amplifiers in the mobile environment. And Brax, to this day, the founding principle of what they do and what they build is to build an amplifier, anything they build, with as little resistance from input power to speaker output level. An amplifier is a pure gain stage. That's what they want. And as Heinz was telling me today, an amplifier that changes the sound, he says you always have those superlatives of it's a smooth sounding amplifier, it's harsh sounding amplifier. He goes, an amplifier shouldn't have a sound. And he had a lot more explanative words than that, but we'll keep this family rated. So that's the founding principles of Brax. And
Okay.
it continues today to now. We've got the Helix product and the Match product, and
it's a whole family of products. We've literally covered them all on CMA Networks. So at this point, big plug, check out the MSC playlist. Everything is on there.
Yes.
My question about Brax, though, let's stick on Brax. Brax is much more than a single lineup of products, and I think this is important that we touch on that.
Yeah, so the Brax product, still keeping it tight, because a Brax product isn't born from a market condition need. Brax has built everything that is released is a long development plan, and when it's in the product range, the X2000 is still a very similar amplifier to the GX 2000s and 2400s that we have today. And part of that, we're still upgrading some of those old amplifiers because we have a lifetime warranty on all Brax products. And that lifetime warranty is not only to fix the product if something goes down on it, but if it's in for repair and there's an upgrade to be done on the amplifier, that's done at no charge to the customer. And when we were there in Germany, we saw the book, and it's literally a book, all handwritten with serial numbers, who originally owned that amplifier. And we've seen amplifiers 15, 20 years old getting repaired at no charge, and they come in the beautiful wood boxes that you see behind us, which is built by a company just down the street. And that continues to be the founding principles of Brax. Build the best we can, all hand built in Germany. Every part, as we'll show you a little bit later here, we'll show you some of the inside of the amplifiers. But that's now gained us, we're into the digital world now with DSP, and Julian had done kind of a study of the Car Media World Show in Salzburg this year. 80% of the competing vehicles, including the SPL guys, were using our DSP technology. So we've got Heinz over here on the Brax analog world, and then Julian, the new kid on the block, designing all the new digital stuff, and it's a perfect melding of the two ideas. It's awesome.
So let's transition to that. Let's get into the DSP. I think Brax is, at this point, funny based on its history, how it's gone to where it is now. But, you know, if we want to talk about premium audiophile grade DSP, Brax is certainly in that league. It's another league. It's a high level league. What makes it so special, Larry? Why can you charge what they're asking for that unit that you're holding right there?
This is our DSP. Size of most amplifiers, if not bigger. But have a look inside, and you see the engineering and everything that went into this. We're using Velvet Sound AKM A to Ds and D to A converters in this 32-bit converters. If you Google yourself, go on to ACAM's website and look at Velvet Sound. That's their high-end A to D and D to A converters. We are a preferred a preferred customer of theirs. We're listed along with some of the other big accounts that they have. We do a lot of work with them, and it's been a pleasure working with them. And then we use analog devices, 3 64-bit DSP chipsets in this thing. So it's got a lot of horsepower, a lot of processing power that allows us to do pretty much anything. So world-class components, which we all know it's easy to get world-class components, but it's understanding how to put that all together, how to assemble it on the board for low noise.
And that's assembled in Germany, right? Just to be clear, I just want to get that out of the way.
Everything with Brax is made in Germany. Everything. And
Gotcha.
I want to bring this up. I'm going to bring out the, well, I'll wait. We'll wait one more second. So Brax DSP was the first to use our ACO-based platform processor, which includes real center, augmented base circuit, all bespoke construction. When you order the Brax DSP, we build to your order. So you can specify.
Wait a minute. This is not an off-the-shelf that you have to order and they will make it for you?
Correct. This is one of the input cards here. So on the side of the processor, that is the input section there. And that is the digital input section. Oh, this one's analog, sorry. This is the analog input section here. But let's say customer came in and bought this and was using analog inputs. You can remove those analog inputs and take the card out, which will look like this, and then slide in the digital input card. So when you're ordering this product, you specify exactly how you want the unit built, and we will build it to that spec for you. And it's got 2 of our HEC card inserts, so you can do the USB input, you can do the high definition Bluetooth input, however you want to do it to your bespoke design. And then it comes with a certificate of ownership, a nice shirt, comes in the nice wooden crate. It's a presentation, because in this world of audiophile, we believe that part of that is the enjoyment of owning a product. And we can build, as we've proven, in some of our more affordable product in the Match and Helix line, we can build a great sounding product, just like you can buy a great car for $50,000, but a nice Lamborghini Huracan or Regera or something like that is a special car. It's just special. Everything about it, from the parts to the way it's constructed to the presentation, that is the pride of ownership. And that is what Brax is all about, is pride of ownership and attention to detail.
Let's now. So go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, I forgot one feature that kind of segue into the next. We have an incredible new feature. We're the first to use this way in the mobile environment. That's called DISAC. So what we're actually doing when you feed a digital input into our processor, instead of going into different D to A and A to D conversion stages, it stays digital and is output through either Toslink or coax out of the DSP and plugs into the digital input of our Brax amplifier. And through that Toslink connection, we have a little carrier signal over that stereo pair as well. So we have one Toslink cable carrying left and right digital audio, and then a carrier signal. And that carrier signal is when you grab our conductor or director volume control, you're actually controlling the analog output stage of the amplifier. So typically on a all digital system, when you turn down the digital volume control, you are actually compressing the bit rate of the audio signal, of the digital audio signal. So we run full scale digital from front of the car to the back of the car. And when you want to turn it down, you're not compressing the signal, you're turning down the analog side of the amplifier. So in the audiophile world, the quest for the best of the best, build everything we can. Yes, yeah, it's a totally different world, and that's what makes our stuff completely different. Is it's a system design from the front
Well,
end to the back end.
You kind of took the words of my mouth. Where I was going with this is now help me connect the dots, Larry, of the elevation of experience now when you match your Brax DSP to a Brax amplifier.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to take out the MX4 Pro because it's 34 pounds and it's a little heavy. So we'll just start with the GX, I think, what do we got? GX 2000 internally, and I'll kind of bring this up. You look at the guts of that thing and the way it's built. Now, what I want to point out, everything in this amplifier is bespoke, proprietary design for Brax. So you look at our power transformer here. That power transformer, and I'm going to use my best German name here, but Vakuumschmelze builds the.
Sorry, say that again, Larry. What was that?
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But the company who makes the core of this uses a very proprietary material. There's only 2 companies in the world that use the core for that. And could we have done something else that maybe would have had 98% of the sound? Maybe, but that little 2% we want to reserve for Brax because that's the best way to do it. 7 different companies, German companies around our area are involved in making this power transformer. 7. So from the casing to the core to the windings, everything is done proprietary to Brax. Even all the caps and everything you see in here. Heinz, when you go there and you walk around Schmallenberg with him, everybody knows Heinz. He's got a friend all over the place, and that's in the production of his amplifiers as well. So the DISAC circuit is found in the MX4 Pro, which is our big 4-channel amplifier. So it will take 2 Toslink inputs or analog inputs if you want to go analog. But the DISAC thing is really what makes the difference. It's the epitome of the made in Germany philosophy, and the no resistance, no coloration, input power, output power. That it's just a gain stage, and that's really what it's all about.
I could keep going, Larry, but I have to restrain myself. We need to save some of the goodness so that these guys tune in for our full show where we cover Brax top to bottom. We're going to gut it inside out, and I'm going to literally poke you on everything that says on the box and tell me what that means.
Yeah.
So having said that, we're going to get to the fun question that I've asked everybody tonight. With the access to so many goodies that you have, just within an arm's reach, how would you envision building your idea of a sound system for you?
Well, we're going to give everybody a little taste of that at the upcoming Master Tech show in March in Phoenix, our hometown of our U.S. office. And we're going to be featuring some of this goodness, which is the Brax speaker system, because we won't get into detail on that. But all of the Brax speakers, from the Matrix line to the graphic line, which is these guys, all built in Germany again, all using Dr. Kurt Mueller cones and domes on the tweeters and formers and all the rest of it. So we're going to run a complete Brax speaker system in a new car that we're building, including the little GL2, which is our new man jewelry. I'll see if I can quickly get this grill off so you can get a quick peek at that. So it's just stainless steel like all the rest of our speakers, just in a 2-inch mid-range driver. So we're pretty excited about that. And then obviously using the MX4 Pro, we're going to probably have about 3 of those in there with the Brax DSP, with the Brax subwoofers, Brax speakers. And
so Brax covers you top to bottom, the whole system.
Absolutely.
Less the source unit is Brax.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So we showed you that power supply.
Mm-hmm.
I come back to this because this is the ongoing internal joke at the office. That's our match 5-channel amplifier with 9 channels of DSP, and if we hold this back up to the GX amplifier here, this is the joke in the office.
So unnecessary.
The whole amplifier is the size of the power supply of the Brax amplifier. So that's Julian's point to his dad of why his stuff is cooler.
I think that's up for debate. Whose is cooler? I think there's customers that just want the best and don't care about the size, and there's something to be said. And then there's the flip side. We like what Andy was saying. He's coming with a product that is smaller footprint, great quality. I think there's a market for all of it. My
Absolutely.
job is to show everybody what's available. So thank you so much, Larry. I want to remind everybody, if you're interested in Brax products, check out the international website. Oh, what are you showing there?
One
What are you
last
putting on the
thing.
screen?
This is
What is
why
that?
it's important to me. This is my DSP that I showed you that's going into the car. So it's got
Yep.
the production date, the signature of the man who built it, who happens to be the same man since Brax's inception that is putting this together, and then signed off by Julian Fisher as
Gotcha.
meeting its quality goals.
That's
So,
what you were referring to.
yeah.
Kind of slick.
That's cool. Anyways, I could go on forever. You got one more guest. It's been a great show.
Tune in to our Brax show. Tune into our Brax show. If you're in Canada or the US and you're interested in becoming a dealer or you want more information, check out msc-america.com. MSC, the exclusive distributor for all things Audio Tech Fisher in North America. Thank you so much, Larry.
Take care.
All right. One last final one, and this one's a doozy. These guys went like, I mean, you want to talk about high end, you want to talk about over the top, and you want to talk about like, what? How much is that? We're going to get him on right now. Representing Alpine, brand specialist, Mr. Dan Greenwood.
Hello.
Dan, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Are you enjoying listening to your compadres talk about all their high end gear and kind of geeking out on it tonight?
Fun stuff.
It is fun stuff. Now,
yeah,
I meant what I said. I kind of saved the over the top, the most over the top award for you guys, Alpine, and rightfully so, because well, let's just get to the point. I want to talk about F#1 status. It's for those of us who have been around for a long time, we remember the different iterations of it. It's come back. So I guess the question is, what's the driving force behind it right now? What's with the timing?
Well, it's all about the whatever medium for your music source that is the best right now. So right now it's high res audio, and so like we're able to produce audiophiles and resolution of 32-bit 384K sampling rate, which is the highest in the industry, highest in the car, and that's, to put in perspective, that's 17 and a half times the resolution of CD. Yeah. So if you go back in time and you look at the first generation F#1 status system that came out in 2001, and the best media for that time was CD. So what we try to do is build the best system possible to play CD and make it sound the best that it can. Fast forward a few years, 2004, we came out Gen 2. That was DVD audio. Fortunately, it didn't take off, but hey, it was the best at the time. And then took a little bit of a break for a while, and technology kind of caught up, and now we're kind of showing off what the highest resolution possible is in a car, and it's pretty astonishing.
Well, I tell you, again, I'm repeating myself with every brand tonight, because you're going to want to tune in to the show we did this morning. I mean, just today, it's already on our platform. But Dan goes in detail about everything that has to do with F#1 status. Everything you want to know, like why, it's answered. But we're going to touch on a few key things. You know, what would be some of the major technological achievements that we want to just kind of point out right now when it comes to F#1 status, the latest rendition?
So going back to the high res and the resolution, the 32-bit 384K, in order to achieve that kind of resolution, you need to have a very, very, very fast processor. So an RDSP, it's very fast. There's actually 64-bit processing
quad processor.
Yeah, there's 4. Yes. And the head unit. Now it's all one system. That's also something we need to point out, that everything is built to work together.
So you can only purchase the system as a system. It is not available a la carte.
That is correct.
Okay.
So, and little side tangent. Everyone's been talking about their dream system, right? Of what they would build. And you notice the common theme was 3-way front stage, separate amps left and right. That's actually exactly what the F1 status system is, because that's what our dream system is as well, right? So, we built it to be this system, and and something that's revolutionary and new that's never been done in car before is we have a thing called a master clock management system.
Oh yes.
So what this is, and we go into way more depth in our other video, but just to kind of summarize, what it is it's a chip that's actually a quartz crystal that's in a temperature controlled oven in the middle of the processor. It's actually in a copper housing that's for EMI rejection, and it actually keeps the head unit and the processor in perfect sync and time That way, whenever you're playing those extremely high-res audio files, you're going to eliminate any possible jitter between the two.
I was just going to say,
components.
I don't remember who mentioned. I think Andy mentioned jitter earlier
Yes,
on.
talk about jitter in
Yeah.
the USB cable. Exactly, yeah. So, which I laughed at that because I'm sure the guy wasn't playing 32-bit 384K
No.
and talking and complaining about jitter. So that's pretty
Playing from
funny.
right? So anyhow,
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah.
Let's not give him any more. There's a lot more line items when it comes to features, but that's just one extreme that you definitely want to point out. Now, I think where this is going, though, I think where a lot of shops are going to be really excited about is the trickle-down effect, the technology that's trickling down to this new line that Alpine recently announced called Status. So, how much of that DNA is actually trickled down? I mean, I can tell you firsthand, aesthetically, there's no doubt they are related.
Oh yes, yeah. A lot of people have been fooled. I've shown people pictures of Status, and they said, "Oh yes, that's the new F1 system." No, it's Status. It looks almost identical. It's very, very similar, and it's by design. We think we kind of killed it with the aesthetics of the F1 Status system. I personally think all of the components are gorgeous, and also kind of a little bit of a throwback, like the bringing back the 6-screen chiclets, which I know every single person has been excited to see. All those design characteristics have come back down into Status. But the differences you're going to see is, there's going to be a couple of different type components. It's not going to have the master clock management system because it's not really needed in this system. But and you can also piece it together. It's not just one SKU, so you can build up.
Status is available a la carte.
It is a la carte, and by a la carte I mean you can buy your amplifiers, you can buy your speakers, whatever. You can piece it together just like anything.
Being quite interested about the source unit backstage today.
Yes, yeah. So there is a new source unit. I'll loosely say head unit because it's not a real head unit because it doesn't have a tuner, but it is. I call it like more of a companion piece. That is a high-res media player. That does high-res audio. It'll actually natively run at 24-bit 192K. It can also play files above that. It will just downsample it, but it's really sleek, cool little controller. It has a lot of the Alpine DNA and design elements to it, and it's actually more of a custom install. So instead of it being a single DEN radio, it's actually a little controller with a hideaway box, so you can actually flush it in or customize it, and you can actually add it to a system and have your factory radio or maybe an aftermarket screen, whatever you want. Also, as another source unit for your DSP, so you can
it's a slick looking signature Alpine aesthetic DRC. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's talk. Let's take one takeaway feature or product out of the new status line that you find is really unique or you really want people to know about.
The DSP, for sure. So we get the D90. That's the model number. It is it's an amplifier and DSP, and I've been calling it the Swiss Army knife DSP, and because it kind of does everything. So it's a 14-channel DSP and a 12-channel amplifier. And what's cool is it's actually
channels.
Yes. And what's really cool is it's staggered power. So we do have 50-watt channels, 50 watt by 8, and then we have 4 80-watt channels. So those are more dedicated for like your mid-bass drivers. And because there's 12 channels total, and there's also 2 dedicated pre-outs, there's actually 10 pre-outs total. So you can use this thing as a standalone DSP as well. You can build a system with, active 3-way fronts, active 3-way rears and sub, or 2-way rears and a 2-way center channel if you want, and 3-way fronts. There's so many configurations and so many possibilities of what you can do. And also, the physical size of the DSP and amp, it's really not that big. So it's I don't have one on hand, unfortunately, to show you guys, but it's kind of a full system and in one box, and it's your DSP, it's your amp, and it's a really strong, powerful amplifier too. Don't let the numbers on it fool you.
I want to add
drive the speakers pretty well.
We did do a session on this, you and I, Dan, during our DSP sessions where we go in depth about this particular integrated DSP amplifier. And the other thing you're going to discover on that show, if you guys look into it, the GUI, brand new interface, super slick. I really love. That's one of my favorite presentation as far as a GUI for DSP. And now amplifiers available on the status line, non DSP, correct?
That is very soon. They're going to be shipping soon.
Okay.
But I have one to show you guys.
I knew you'd have something.
Yes. So this is it.
Yeah, look at the aesthetics. I mean, clearly related to the F number one status look.
Oh yes, yeah. So this is if you guys are familiar with our current lineup, this is about the same size of an X series amp. It actually uses the same plugs. If you guys are curious, the F1 status amps also use the same plugs. And there will be a 4-channel, a 5-channel, and a monoblock.
There you go. And is this replacing any current series within the Alpine lineup?
This will replace the X series. Yeah.
There you go. There you have it. Yeah. All right. I've asked all my questions. Time to ask my last and final fun question. You've obviously, working at Alpine, you've got a lot of, fun toys at your disposal. Now you've heard everybody else kind of build their system. What do we expect from a Dan Greenwood system?
Well, I think the obvious answer would be the F1 status system, but I'm gonna scale it down a little bit.
Let's scale that down a little bit.
I'm gonna scale it down.
Okay.
Me, just like everyone else, act three-way front. So in the status line, we are offering 2-way and 3-way components speakers. They sound fantastic. They're really, really beautiful sounding speakers at a really good price point. But 3 ways of those with not sure on the sub yet. I'm always changing my mind on sub, but a 4-channel amp to run each front side, and then the DSP, and I'm happy.
There you go. Yeah. If you want more information on all this F number one status or status goodness coming out from Alpine, here's the website, alpine-usa.com. Everything's on there. And if you happen to be a dealer in Canada, get a hold of their exclusive Canadian distributor, Gentech. You can find them at gentech-intl.com. Dan, thanks for closing out the show for me, man. Appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
I do encourage everybody, check out the full show all about F number one status that we did earlier today. That's it. I want to take this opportunity to thank all our great guests that joined us tonight, representing brands like Audison, Focal, AudioFrog, Brax, and Alpine. Please continue tuning in to CMA Networks. Literally, we're here for a month, all up on high-end business, all the way through November 10th. It's the AUDIOPHILE sessions. Every brand, literally, that we can think of is participating. So shout out to all of them. One day, every day, a different brand. AUDIOPHILE sessions right through till November 10th. Now, this show has been mentioned numerous times tonight, and here is your chance to win an all-inclusive trip to MasterTech Expo 2023. We're doing a great contest with 5-Axis and SiriusXM. All you got to do is head over to cmanetworks.com/giveaway and sign up. It's totally free. We're choosing a winner from the US and a winner from Canada, and we're going to send you there. And while you're there, check out all the other great videos on cmanetworks.com. Doesn't matter what brand, what category, it's there for you to learn. It's where the 12-volt industry connects, cmanetworks.com. That's it for this CMA Live presented by SiriusXM. Awesome show, super fun. And can you believe there's a part 2 coming up soon? Check our schedule. It's coming up in 2 weeks. AUDIOPHILES part 2. And keep it locked here. Again, high-end goodness all month. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Have a good night, everybody. Until next time, we connect.
Stop it.
Yo, roll it down.
I am.
You don't need a car to listen to SiriusXM. You can listen anywhere. You know that, right?
What? Kevin Hart's Laugh Out Loud Radio.
Kevin, you could use your phone.
What? What?
Alexa, play Kevin Hart's Laugh Out Loud Radio on SiriusXM.
What?
This is how I know you're getting old. I guess that was it.
What?